Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is a bit of a crash course in cutting-edge aesthetics and, well, digital economics.
That's a good way to put it.
We're looking deep inside the engine of one of the latest generative AI art tools, a model called Nano Banana Pro that's been making huge waves.
It really has.
And the technology is just, it's incredible. It's allowing pretty much anyone to take a simple photo and turn it into what looks like museum-quality artwork in, what, seconds?
Literally seconds. But that's where the paradox comes in.
Exactly. So we want to understand how this highly sophisticated art is actually created, and maybe more importantly, why it sometimes looks too clean, why it misses these, seemingly simple background details.
And we have some fascinating source material for that. It's a user assessment of Nano Banana Pro, and it just perfectly highlights this tension between speed and getting every detail right.
The output was good, though.
Oh, the output was stunningly convincing. But when you look closer, that deep dive into the output revealed this tiny but really critical vanishing act, the omission of a simple fishnet.
A fishnet. Okay.
So our deep dive today is really twofold. First, we need to map out the actual underlying tech, the diffusion model architecture.
And second,
we have to look at these specific sort of hidden parameters that are guiding the model's decisions to understand why efficiency, things like cost and speed, leads the AI to just intentionally sacrifice fine details, like the weave of that net.
it's a journey from high art straight into computer science economics, then.
You could say that.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So we start with this user assessment.
Right, and this wasn't just a casual test. The user was using Nano Banana Pro's free tier service, and they were converting their own photos. One of them was a really clear image of a zebra cichlid.
Right, a fish in its tank.
Mm.
And they didn't just ask for one style. They were systematic. They asked for a watercoloring, a pencil sketch,
An oil painting, an anime version, I think.
anime, manga, and just a standard digital drawing. The versatility was the first big takeaway.
And the results were good.
Every single image was described as, and I'm quoting here, convincing and promising. It kept the fish looking like a fish, but it also really authentically mimicked the style they asked for.
So the model absolutely nailed the big picture. The subject, the composition, the style. The cichlid looked like a cichlid. The oil painting looked like an oil painting.
Exactly. But that's where the detective work started.
Okay.
Because once you zoom in, past that initial wow factor, this subtle but really critical limitation started to show up across all the different styles.
And this is the fishnet.
This is the fishnet. The original photo clearly showed the fine details of a fishnet, just sort of dangling in the background of the tank. In the AI images, it was just gone, vanished.
I can kind of imagine that in an oil painting or a watercolor, maybe. That detail could just get blurred into the background texture.
It could, yes.
But where did it become really, really obvious?
It was most glaring in the sketching output. The sketch is, it's defined by its lines and its shading. And when the model tried to distill that photo down to its basic outline, it just completely failed to capture the grid pattern of the net. Instead of lines, you just got this smooth, empty background space.
Ah, and that's the tell? That signal to the person doing the assessment that something fundamental was being ignored, not just, artistically simplified.
Precisely. Because a good sketch has to map every relevant line. If the net is gone, it means the mechanism for identifying detail is either flawed or maybe biased in some way.
And the source mentions an initial theory, right? That maybe this is all just a trick. That Nano Banana Pro was using older, cheaper methods to get its outlines.
Yes, that was the initial suspicion.
Yeah.
That it might be leaning on traditional image processing, something like a basic edge detection algorithm.
Which is a much cruder way of doing things.
Much cruder. It just finds high contrast borders. And if it used that, it would perfectly explain why a dense but low contrast detail, like a thin fishnet, would be ignored. It would just focus on the cichlid's strong outline.
So the AI wouldn't be as revolutionary as it seems. It would just be old tech with a new coat of paint.
Exactly. But that idea was debunked. The source confirmed with Gemini that no, Nano Banana Pro relies entirely on modern generative techniques.
So the mystery deepened.
It did. The omission wasn't a relic of old tech. It was a consequence of the new sophisticated system itself. Which, raises the big question. If the model is smart enough to create perfect watercolor texture from nothing, why can't it draw a simple grid?
Okay, so let's move past that red herring of edge detection. Let's get into what is actually happening under the hood. What's the mechanism here?
So what's fascinating is that the diffusion model architecture is the backbone of this whole thing. We're talking about a really powerful multimodal model.
Multimodal meaning what exactly?
It means it's not just processing the image you give it, it's simultaneously processing your text prompt. Make this an oil painting, and it synthesizes both of them together.
So it's like giving an artist a reference photo and a specific creative brief.
That's a great way to think about it. But the process itself is,
Hmm.
it's a little counterintuitive. The core mechanism is called the diffusion process,
Hmm.
or image-to-image translation.
And the source has an analogy for this, right? Something about sand.
A wonderful analogy. It makes it really clear.
Okay, laid out for us, we have our clean photo of the zebra cichlid, step one.
Step one is to basically destroy it. From a normal perspective, it seems completely counterproductive. Nano Banana Pro takes that clear photo and it intentionally starts degrading it.
Wow.
The analogy says it shakes lots of messy and random sand onto the image. In technical terms, that's noise. And it keeps adding this noise until the original photo is completely 100% obscured. You're just left with visual static.
It completely destroys the image. Why would it do that?
Because it forces the model to learn the entire composition from the ground up in the next phase. The real genius is in the denoising.
The cleanup.
The cleanup, yeah. The model is then guided by its memory of the original image and, crucially, by the user's prompt. And it starts to selectively wipe away the sand.
Ah, okay. So it's not just cleaning to get back to the original photo. It's cleaning to reveal the new style.
Absolutely. While it's cleaning, the model has been trained to only leave behind the lines, the colors, the textures that are characteristic of, say, an oil painting. If that was the prompt, it leaves behind thick brush strokes.
And if the prompt was sketching, it leaves behind pencil lines and shading.
Exactly. And because this cleaning is so controlled and context-aware, the final image still looks like the original subject, the fish, but it's in the completely new medium.
That sand analogy really does bring it into focus. It's a brilliant way to think about taking chaos, the noise, and then imposing this ordered artistry onto it, all guided by what the user asked for.
And that's the key transition for our deep dive. Because if this process is so intelligent, if it knows where to put the perfect watercolor brushstroke, why did it fail to recreate the simple pattern of the fishnet?
The answer isn't in the process itself.
It's in the settings, the dials that control that process.
So the system can do it, but something is telling it not to. We're at the control panel now, the specific parameters.
Exactly. The final output isn't just a result of the diffusion model. It's the result of fine-tuning, a half dozen key dials. The omission of the net is a direct consequence of how those parameters are set by default.
What are those levers then?
Well, you have the prompt, obviously, the positive instructions like zebra cichlid, and the negative ones, no blurry background.
Okay.
Then you get the technical controls, things like the guidance scale, the number of sampling steps, the seed, which initializes the noise.
There's also the sampler and the strength, right?
The sampler, which is a specific denoising algorithm, and the strength, which is how much noise you added in the first place. It's a whole toolkit.
It's a very complex toolkit. So how does just one of those knobs, like the guidance scale, make the net disappear?
That's a crucial insight. The guidance scale dictates how strictly the model has to stick to your positive prompt.
How much it has to listen to you.
Right. So if you say zebra cichlid watercolor, and that scale is set high, which it often is by default to get really stylized results, the model prioritizes the subject and the style above everything else.
And the net is, what, just collateral damage?
In a way, yes. The net is a background element. It's a high-frequency detail that doesn't really contribute to the core command of render the cichlid. A high guidance scale basically tells the model, focus all your energy on the fish and the style. Don't waste resources on anything else. And poof, the net gets deprioritized. It gets blurred out or just eliminated.
So the model is making an editorial choice based on how intensely we told it to follow the main rule. What about the sampling steps? That sounds like the number of times it wipes away the sand.
That's a great way to put it. And this is where the economics meets the art. The sampling steps are the number of times the model iterates through that denoising process. Each step refines the image a little bit more.
Okay.
Simple shapes, like the fish or the basic background, they resolve pretty quickly, maybe in the first 20 or 30 steps.
But the net is different.
The net is very different. Highly complex, high-frequency details, like that delicate repeating grid, they require many, many more steps to resolve accurately. So if the default is set low, say 50 steps to get you a fast output, the model just stops refining the image before those expensive, intricate details have a chance to fully form.
It's saving time by just stopping early.
It ends the drawing process prematurely, yeah. relative to that level of detail, at least.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it sounds like the model is intentionally choosing to give you an image that's, say, 90% perfect and fast instead of 100% perfect and slow.
That is the ultimate conclusion here. The omission of the net isn't a failure of intelligence. It's a consequence of optimization. Nano Banana Pro is tuned to prioritize speed and style over microscopic fidelity.
For two main reasons, I'm guessing.
Two core reasons. One, the user expects instant results. And two, maybe most critically, to save processing cost.
I find that trade-off fascinating. We think of advanced AI as having these, unlimited resources, but it's constrained by the exact same economic factors as everything else.
Of course.
A free service, like the one this user was on, has to minimize its GPU time for every single person. And the easiest way to do that is just to tell the system to skip the most computationally expensive details.
Absolutely. Just think about the rendering cost for a highly detailed, repetitive pattern across a whole canvas. Calculating every single thread of that net takes vastly more clock cycles than just rendering a flat blue area for water.
So by dropping that detail, it cuts down processing time, which cuts down operating costs for the company providing the service.
Directly.
So it's a feature masquerading as a bug. If you want the net, you probably have to go in and tweak the default parameters.
You'd have to increase the sampling steps, maybe lower the guidance scale a little.
But that likely means you're moving off the free tier and into a paid service where that extra cost is covered.
That's almost certainly the model. So the takeaway for you, the user, is that you have to be aware of this default bias. These tools are masters of composition and style, but they also are masters of optimization. They are intentionally leaving out what they calculate as secondary or just too expensive to give you a fast, usable output.
So we started with a beautiful image of a zebra cichlid and a vanishing fishnet. We journeyed through this incredible shaking sand diffusion process, and we arrived at the understanding that our own desire for efficiency, for speed, and for low cost is directly responsible for the gaps in the final artwork. The net disappeared because the system was financially optimized to ignore it.
It's a really foundational lesson for working with these systems. We know now that when an AI renders a scene, it's not just interpreting an image, it's making these sophisticated decisions about cost versus detail, all based on its parameters. Understanding the default decision-making is the key to mastering the tool.
And this raises a profound question, I think, one that goes way beyond digital art. If our most sophisticated high-speed tools, whether they're generating images or analyzing complex data or summarizing huge documents, if they are all intentionally omitting these high-frequency, intricate details for the sake of optimization, what are we genuinely missing? What critical, subtle fishnet details are we overlooking in the world of information when we constantly demand the speedy, optimized version of reality? That's something to consider as you interact with the outputs that now, dominate our digital lives. Join us next time for another deep dive.